If you're not feeling the buzz in the NHL right now, you best check your pulse. The league is popping left and right, and that's why you're tapped right into your source for fantasy hockey news. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Happy Friday, finishing the top 5 countdown of the best right wingers in the game and all of the news that's impacting your squad. Most importantly, Chris Tanev's a Dallas Star. What does it mean for your fantasy squad? Let's tap in.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ooh, baby. The NHL is buzzing, and so is Steele and I, and we're getting to business on today's episode. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and oh my goodness me, my friends, there is so much to get to and so much to cover, and thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers. Today's episode, it's brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Steele, I said it to you just off air. Seriously, I'm all kinds of fired up. Aside from the playoffs starting, that first couple of days of the playoffs when there's like 5 or 6 amazing games every night, the lead up to the trade deadline is always so fun for fans, for sure. And us in the fantasy realm, of course, it means serious business. I meant it. This will make or break you, so we're going to talk about it. Chris Tanev's a Dallas Star. Lots of angles to cover here. We'll do it neat and tidy. You know how we do on this show. Within 30 minutes, we're breaking down all of the latest news for you guys and trying to help your fantasy squad and finishing the show with bets. So, Chris Tanev, what does it mean? Josh Norris out. Clayton Keller out. Joseph Woll back in the cage, and our top 10 right wing countdown. 5 through 1, Friday's bet steal. I'm done with the preamble because we need to save our talking points for the rest of this episode. Go ahead, my friend. Chris Tanev, this is a big move. This means a lot for this Dallas Stars team, but I think it also means quite a bit for the Calgary Flames, and I'm interested to hear your take on how they did in this deal because I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I'm really liking this for the Dallas Stars side of point of view, acquiring Chris Tanev from the Calgary Flames. I mean, if it only took a second round pick, a prospect, and a conditional third round pick that's gonna be in 2026, and that conditional third round pick only happens if the Dallas Stars make the Stanley Cup Finals, like it doesn't make any sense to me. At this point about the value of Chris Tanev. I mean, if that's what it costs, I think a lot of teams could have done that. So it's for me, it's an A+ for the Dallas Stars point of view. I truly don't like, we talked about this. If the Toronto Maple Leafs were going to acquire Tanev, like he's not going to be the guy that sets them above now they're going to be the top Stanley Cup contending team. He's going to add value, of course, come the postseason. He's going to put his body on the line. He's going to be physical. He's going to block shots. He's going to play some heavy minutes because, like I said, with Ryan Suter in their bottom D pairing. So this is good. This is a great move for Chris Tanev. And I think for Craig Conroy specifically, the expectations on the return were a little bit high heading into February and now getting closer to the trade deadline. And he quickly found out the true value of what Chris Tanev for a lot of teams and the calls that he was receiving. So, I mean, he at that point, it's the best that he could probably do, but it's a great return. It's a great add-on for the Dallas Stars getting Tanev.
We have been talking about Chris Tanev for the entire season. He's been on the block along with Hanifin and all the other names in Calgary. They've been basically on that block from the beginning of the season till now. It's just interesting to me. Number one, it's a win for the Dallas Stars for sure. I don't think the price was very high. The interesting point you mentioned about Toronto, because obviously it was a name in the mix for the Leafs for a very long time. And it makes a lot of sense for sure. And could they use him? Most definitely. Would he have immediately become probably their second best defenseman? Yes, sir. But at the same time, this Leafs team, one ad is not going to be the be-all and end-all. So I just don't see what happens for the Leafs. That's a whole other thing. So that's really a whole other conversation. So I'll just leave it at this for what I see right now on the ice. I give the Dallas Stars an A for this one because now they have a shutdown pairing defenseman that they so much very badly need. And I think there's a few takeaways here. Number one, We know that Jake Ottinger's been a little bit up and down this year. So why not throw a big, bruising, beast mode blue liner in there who is going to be the perfect kind of warrior to really help balance out this blue line? That's good for the goaltender, number one. So Jake Ottinger, keep your eye on him, and maybe hopefully his value rises over the end of the fantasy season. Number two for me, Steele, does this open up this Dallas forward group to do even more dangerous things? We've been talking about maybe getting a little bit more of RoboCop and Rupe Hintz, so maybe even more anchor on the back end. I don't know if it happens overnight, because also I'm reading Tanev is having some issues with his visa. He's not going to play for Dallas until next week, probably Tuesday or Wednesday. So obviously that's only 1 or 2 games, if that. But still, it's going to take some time for him to settle in. So if he does settle in the way I think it will, it's going to help Jake Ottinger's fantasy value, number one. And I think it's really going to free up the forward group in Dallas to do special things. And I don't think Jim Nill is done. Jim Nill is an astute GM, and I think he realizes how close this team is to being a winner. And lastly, Steele, I know I'm saying a lot, it's the Calgary Flames. Craig Conroy waited all season. He couldn't have waited a little bit longer to see if a team maybe got a little bit more sniffing around or got desperate in the next week or so up into the deadline and really waited it out. This is what he waited all year to get. And I'm hearing this, who is it? This Grushnikov kid is a big bruiser. They like him as a prospect, a second and a prospective third. It's okay. They could have gotten more, I think, for Chris Tanev. You're right about seeing his value right now. I think he could have waited out. He waited this long. Maybe Chris Tanev pushed himself out. I don't know. I just think the Flames could have done better, and that's all I have to say about that, my friend.
Yeah, they probably thought they could have done a lot better, but again, from reading all the comments on Twitter and reading online, like it just seemed like all the calls that they were getting, he was finding out the true value of Chris Tanev. And again, this is not going to, like you said, it's not going to be the be all end all with Chris Tanev. He's not an offensive minded defenseman. He only gets
1 goal, 13 assists, plus 15 points a year, 56 games this season.
Yeah, like he's not the most physical. He's not the most physical defenseman either. He only has 25 hits, and that's pretty much his average over his entire career. But he's going to put his body on the line. Like I said, he's going to block all the shots that he possibly can.
That's surprising. His hits are so low.
Defensive defenseman god back there. It is very surprising to see Chris Tanev's hits so low. But over the span of his career, he's been a strong defenseman. He has a career plus one. What is it? Career plus 116 throughout his
that's
NHL
impressive.
career. Like he's only had one season in the minuses, so it's very impressive from Chris Tanev.
Yeah.
So again, it's a little bit. Calgary Flames could have got a little bit of a bigger return, but I think at the time, like this is what they were just getting from all their calls.
Most definitely. And just to recap it, they get the prospect Grushnikov on the back end, a 2nd-round pick, and a conditional 3rd-round pick in 2026. And obviously that was a little bit of a 3-team deal with New Jersey taking some cap. Yeah. It's an interesting kind of move that now has to happen a lot still. They have to bring in that third-party team to really circumvent the cap situation. However, Josh Norris, Clayton Keller, they're both out. Clayton Keller, it's a more of a minor thing. Out there, though, as fantasy cats, we just like to highlight everything that's going on that affects your squad. Clayton Keller looking like a week or two out. Check into Monday's episode for all your waiver wire replacements for a player, and Clayton Keller, who's having yet another good season. Not much to say there, Steele. However, talking about Josh Norris, by the way, bets coming up, the rest of the countdown, top right wingers in the game. Friday's bets, 3 games coming up on tap. However, Josh Norris, I talked a lot about him last season, Steele, a player that I really like. Coming into the league, scored like 42 or something odd goals in a season and change, and like really lit the league on fire in terms of a young American shooter that really looked like he had it going on in a very big way. And another upper body injury. I really don't know. Actually, if we know, they probably aren't saying anything yet about the shoulder. We'll probably have to look into it even more. But out for an extended period of time with an upper body injury, you can't help but feel it might be another shoulder. 16 goals, 14 assists in 50 games. Just want to bring it up because he was fantasy relevant, Steele. And a lot of guys out there and gals are probably still holding on to Josh Norris, hoping for what I've hoped out of him. And he's just been a little bit disappointing once again. And now the injury, this guy it's almost time to like completely sell this guy off. I'm not saying write him off forever, but just another disappointment out of Ottawa this season.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not his shoulder, then I have no idea what he's injured with, because he fell straight into the back of the net on his shoulder. I mean, it has to be, and that seems to be the reoccurring offense with Josh Norris and his injuries, and he's really starting to put himself in that Patrick Laine category of just a
Ooh,
guy
you
with
said it.
super talent.
Whoa.
A guy with super talent. He's got mad talent out there,
Yeah.
but just continues to get injured, and then takes a while to come back. He gets injured again. He re-injures himself in the same area. So he's just starting to be one of those guys. Like, I had him last year. I traded him away when he got injured, or the year prior, and then I also have him this year in my keeper league. And now he's injured once again, and he was injured before. So it's just a reoccurring thing with this player, and he's starting to be in my bad graces at this point.
And I would also not recommend wasting an IR spot on Josh Norris at this point. The Ottawa Senators season is cooked.
No.
There is not going to be any value in hanging on to this guy. He's out for an extended period of time. That's going to be the season, most likely. I'm not going to sit here and speculate. Read into it as you will. It's not looking good or sounding good for Josh Norris, and we got to mention it. However, it's going to get neat and tidy after the break. We're going to touch on Joseph Woll very quickly because he's back, baby, and it's going to mean good things for a Toronto Maple Leafs team that's already playing good hockey. You know, that sounds good to our ears, but it means good things for fantasy owners out there, and the top 5 countdown right wingers in the Game Fridays bets coming up. You know where you got to be placing those bets. Go check out FanDuel. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Go get buckets with FanDuel, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet hits. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure you go check out Locked On Sports Today's YouTube channel, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. You can also find it now on Amazon Fire TV. They're here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering every single league. So make sure you go check it out on YouTube and on Amazon Fire TV. We're going to get to our top 5, continuing the conversation of our top 10, but we're going to talk about the top 5 best right wingers in the NHL, best right wingers fantasy-wise. But first, Joseph Woll returning back to action for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Just very quickly, because 8-5-1, 2.80 goals against average, .916 save percentage before going down, Steele. This guy was starting to round into form as their #1 goaltender. And look, we're not going to talk about the Maple Leafs. We've covered it. Everyone knows what it is. A top-heavy club, patchwork blue line, and uncertainty in the cage. And there's still uncertainty with Joseph Woll. I'm not saying he's going to come back and save your season, but I'm saying this. I'm throwing him right in there, and he's going to get a good shot against we don't know how he's going to do against Arizona on Thursday night, but that's a perfect time for him to come back against a struggling bottom-feeding club, maybe build some confidence. So immediately, he's already, like, I've already rejigged my lineup. He's starting for me tonight. I'm going to take the risk against Arizona Coyotes. I don't think there's much risk there. Immediately, Joseph Woll is back in my lineup, and he should be back in yours at least as you figure out how he's going to do. If they have to go back to Samsonov because Woll struggles, they are not going to hesitate to steal. They're in a playoff race. Right now, it's going to be next man up. If Samsonov struggles and they still have Martin Jones, they might throw him in there because that's how dire it might get for this Maple Leafs team. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I hope Joseph Woll comes back, takes the reins as we expect him to do. He's a rookie with no sample size. Anything could happen. However, I only have 4 players left because I messed up this countdown. So why don't you just hit me with your 5th and I'll hit you with mine.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll continue talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs because I've got Mitchell Marner at number 5 on my best right wingers list. Again, specifically talking about only right wingers on Yahoo. No dual eligibilities allowed, just specifically right
Yahoo
wingers.
specifically.
Mitch Marner comes in at number... Yes. Mitch Marner comes in at number 5 for me. 72 points in 57 games. He's on pace for 33 goals, which would be 3 straight years of 30-plus goals. He's on pace for 103 points, which would be a career high for him. Will also be his 4th year recording 90-plus points. And if it weren't for those 2 shortened seasons due to COVID, he would have 6 years with 90-plus points. 6 out of 8 years in the NHL with 90-plus points. That would be absolutely insane from Mitch Marner. He plays heavy minutes. He's creative with the puck. He's agile. sometimes his creativity and cuteness can be a little bit of a danger for him
sure.
as well,
Has to be
especially on
mentioned.
both offensive and defensive sides of the blue line. But he makes up for that with all the talent he has, shorthanded on the power play, 5-on-5. Again, one of the best passers and visionaries on the ice. And just having him on the Toronto Maple Leafs is an added bonus as well. So he comes in at number 5 for me.
Number 5 for me as well. His numbers back him up. A lot of what comes in at Mitch Marner is a lot of, I think, what you would call shade, perhaps, Steele. The kids would call it shade coming at Mitchy Marner, because I think if he's in another market, perhaps he is even bigger of a star and even more loved than he is. I think he's maybe sometimes portrayed in a poor light. And the knock on Mitch is obviously what you mentioned and his quote-unquote inability to get it done in the postseason for this team. Because right there in the same light as Austin Matthews, obviously a different player, obviously a different style and a different game. He brings the same value, and he's just as important to the success of the Toronto Maple Leafs. 626 points since entering the league in 664 games is straight up and down impressive. And a lot of the knocks, like I said, come about his performance in the postseason. Do the math. In 50 games, Mitchie has 47 points and 3 game winners in the postseason. We know the Toronto Maple Leafs, that hasn't translated into success. But when we're talking about fantasy and we're just talking about the best in the business, and you said it, he's a visionary out there. He can pass and deke and skate better than most. And he is right up there in terms of hands, just as good as that second tier. I'm not going to say McDavid and McKinnon, but he is right there in that second tier as the best in the NHL. And that's just a fact.
Yes, it is. And we can also say the same now for one of his teammates, William Nylander. I'm also just going to do a last-minute switcheroo right here. I'm actually putting William Nylander down a spot. He was at number 3. I'm moving him down to number 4 on my list. I'm switching that around real quickly. But William Nylander comes in at number 4 as well. Third straight season of 80-plus points. He's on pace for 112 points. And this is what you do. This is what you get when you do those extra little things that superstars across the league are supposed to do and do on a nightly basis. You know, make the extra stride to beat out an icing call, dig for the pucks in the corner, be physical and showing your passion, sticking up for teammates. And I believe we've seen that and more from Nylander this season than we have for the last 4 years. He's truly become a triple threat in the league and for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He can produce 5-on-5. He produces on the power play, and now he's producing shorthanded as well. He has 3 shorthanded goals, 4 total points on the penalty kill. And again, just doing all those little things that we've all, as Leaf fans, that we've wanted to see from him over the last 3-4 years, because we knew the talent was there. We knew the ceiling was high for him, but just showing that little bit extra effort in those smaller areas around the ice, and we're finally seeing that. So he comes in at number 4 for me.
I absolutely respect this take. Also, I believe I was looking at those giveaway takeaway numbers. You know, his ratio is 3-1 in the good sense of things. He's really rounded out his game defensively. That has to be mentioned. And his goal scoring ability is 40 plus. You know me and those 40 plus goal scorers, Steele. They don't exactly roll around all the time, but we do have a handful of them to finish out this list. And I believe you and I have the exact same list, so it can probably happen fairly quickly. So let's just go with number 3 right before the break, because let's keep it tight, because I think this is a clear-cut trio. Number 3, Mikko Rantanen, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated players that the NHL has seen in a number of years. But let's hold the phone here. This is now a cup winner. He's an all-star. He should have the respect that those accolades bring. And I don't think, aside from dedicated hockey circles, he gets it. But this man's numbers, Steele, 92 points 2 seasons ago, 105 points a season ago, and already on pace for another 90-plus point season. Mikko Rantanen is one of the main reasons that this Colorado Avalanche team, regardless of what they do in their own end, they're winners, and they are definitely in the conversation for the Stanley Cup once again. And he has 30 plus goals. He's going to have 50 plus assists, and he is just an absolute fantasy stud that you can't miss out on. He's a top 2 round pick, most definitely.
100%. I still think he actually might be a first round pick. He's just that good in my opinion.
For sure. Depending on the league layout,
that's
definitely.
why Yeah, and that's why I quickly switched him from number 4 to number 3 on this list, because he does deserve more love from that. 76 points in 60 games. Like you said, one of the most overlooked players in the entire NHL. And part of the reason is because when you talk about the duos and the superstars in the league, Matthews and Marner, you McDavid, Draisaitl, Pettersson and Hughes, Makar, McKinnon. Like, when it comes to Colorado, you always go straight to Makar and McKinnon, but you forget about that guy on the right-hand side, Mikko Rantanen, who is the perfect player for McKinnon to play with on the same line. So Mikko Rantanen deserves a lot more love. He's one of the best superstars in the league right now and deserves that credit. So he comes in at number 3. We'll get to the number 2 players on this list. You would probably at this point already know who it is, but we'll get to it right after the break with big-time bets. But first, this episode is also brought to you by Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when buying your tickets to the next big event. That's why Flip and I always use the Game Time app. Game Time is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guaranteed. Easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. You can see the seats from the venue before your purchase. Lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and job loss protection. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on your tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It is the place to find last-minute seats. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning. We'll get to Big Time Bet very, very soon. But first, let's talk about our top 2 right wingers in the National Hockey League. I believe we have the same order here. At number 2 on my list, I have David Pastrnak. It's no shock here. 85 points in 60 games. I mean, this guy is at this point is becoming a little bit of a banger league beauty. He's got 45 penalty minutes. He gets a lot of penalty minutes every single year. 290 shots, 50 hits. The points are up there. He's one of the most dangerous.
He's throwing the body around.
Dangerous and versatile players in the National Hockey League. I mean, it is sometimes incredible to see how he can score the goal. I mean, it just seems like he does it in different ways every single night. Either he's sitting in what we like to call the Ovi's office over there on the left hash marks, whether he's shooting backhanders from the boards and just going bar down. I mean, he can literally do it all. At this point, it's not very surprising.
I would say, if not for maybe some of the likes of, I'm going to go with Matthews. I might throw McKinnon shot in there.
Yeah.
He's hands down got the best wrist shot in the game, and it's not close, I don't think, in my opinion. When he's shooting, it doesn't matter what goalie is in there, he's scoring. That's the kind of talent that he has, and there's not many of those guys left in the league. Ovechkin fading, Matthews there, maybe McKinnon, and then Pastrnak. And, of course, Kucherov's at number 1, and he has so much more tools in his chest. And he is not just a straight shooter like David Pastrnak is, but I'll bring this up just because it was kind of funny when I was reading into Pastrnak. Drafted by the Boston Bruins at 25th overall in the 2014 draft. You want to name a couple of players taken ahead of him that year, Steele? How about, for fun, Jacob Vrana? How about Sonny Milano? How about Robert Fabry? Tony DeAngelo? Kasperi Kapanen? Someone named Connor Bleakley? What a mistake on all of those teams' parts. And once again, the Boston Bruins just knocking it out of the park in the front office sense of things. So just got to shout out David Pastrnak, Pasta, one of the best to do it. 339 career goals in only 652 games, on pace for another 50-plus goal season. Pretty close to it anyway. Man, he's good. 298 shots, I believe, leads the league as well, Steele. It does, by the way.
Definitely leads the league. He loves to shoot the puck. Nikita Kucherov, though, is also up there in shots on net. He's got
Yes, sir.
250 on the season. He comes in at number one on my list, probably your list
Mine
as
too.
well.
Yes, sir.
103 points in 60 games, on pace for 140 points. Like, he's just absolutely incredible. Sets the franchise record in Tampa Bay Lightning history for fewest games to 100 points, which he also had the previous record of just a few seasons ago. But I mean, it's not shocking, but it's shocking to see at the same time, because Connor McDavid is usually the guy who gets there first now. But Nikita Kucherov, I mean, 38 goals and 65 assists, and the Tampa Bay Lightning are only in a wild card spot. I mean, that is just absolutely insane to me.
Yeah, I think there's also a really interesting take here that I mentioned earlier in the week about the Hart Trophy race. And I saw an article about Matthews is now in the lead for the odds on FanDuel. You know, a lot of those markets are influenced by the Toronto market and the attention of the media in Toronto. Let's be honest, I think it should be Nikita Kucherov as the leading candidate for the Hart Trophy. He comes up, he accommodates for 50% of Tampa Bay's complete total offensive output. 50%. That's insane. And like you mentioned, Tampa, yeah, they've played better of late, I would say. But take away Kucherov, where are they at this season? I don't think they survive Andrei Vasilevsky's injury at the start of the season the way that they do without a special season from Kuch. He's got the hands for days, and he is just a production machine. He is starting to push himself into the conversation as the best Russians ever to play the game. And obviously there's some really good ones out there, but it's a special thing. And I love talking about these special players because there's no shortage of awesome angles to cover with just how good they are and how much they bring it, which is what we're going to do right now with bets. Boom.
That was a perfect segue over into big time bets. Thank you very much for that, Flip.
I'm trying.
3 games on the schedule. Games on the schedule Friday nights. A little bit of a slow weekend start in the NHL, but we've got big time bets for all of you out there. I've got 3 picks, 2 from the same game. I'm just going to rattle them off real quick. First pick of the night. First pick of the night. Senators on the money line against the Arizona Coyotes. This is a back-to-back situation for the Arizona Coyotes. They're 0-8-2 in their last 10. I believe they're like 0-12-2 in their last 14. So they've been real bad over the last stretch, over the last month stretch. So Senators on the money line. I'm also going to go with the Brady Tkachuk anytime goal in this matchup. I think he's gonna ball out in this one and just put on a dominating performance. Lock of the night, though, Devils and Ducks under 6.5 in this matchup. 8 out of the last 10 have gone under the number, and I'm feeling the under in this matchup for some reason as well.
Yeah, that is an interesting one for sure, because I'm going to hit you with this. I actually see this one going over the total, and I understand the numbers there, and I get the gut pick. Little side bet. It's been a while for you and I. Let's take it.
It's been a while.
Toss a little 10-piece on that bad boy. I'm going to take the over. When I look at both of the New Jersey, and I have a same game parlay here. By the way, that Arizona angle is definitely one I'd be taking a look at. I know Ottawa has been dealt a number of bad hands right now, but maybe it's a rallying point for them and they make something happen in the end of the season here. They have been playing better. However, I'm going to look at a same game parlay here. Jack Hughes, number 1, anytime point. That would be my lock of the night. You're going to probably have to pay some heavy juice coming off a 3-point night the other night against San Jose. That's 5 points in his last 4 games. He's got to pick it up. He had 11 shots on net in that game, Steele, and he had 10 against the Rangers a couple of nights before, meaning to me, he's starting to feel it. So Jack Hughes in his career, 6 games against the Anaheim Ducks, 6 points. Jack Hughes, anytime point. Going with the Devils on the money line, that one just makes sense to me. Nico Dawes has started 9 of the last 10 for the Devils, and he hasn't been that bad. The Devils have let him down. We know what's been going on with the Devils. Key injuries to key players at key times. Can they turn it around? Are they going to get a player? Sounds like that Jacob Markstrom deal, Steele, was very, very close to getting done. They just can't figure out the money. Maybe it happens. Anyhow, Devils, I'm going with the over, and I really like Jack Hughes anytime point, and I'm liking that same game parlay. I know you're not feeling me on the over, but let's agree on at least the Jack Hughes anytime point as a good angle.
Yeah, I'll take the Jack Hughes anytime. I'll also take the
Thank you.
Devils on the money line as well. But like you
Thank you.
said, Nico Dawes has been pretty decent over the last stretch. And
Not
it could
too
just be
bad.
one of those games, not too bad, but, a 5-1, 4-2 type of victory for the Devils. I think that'd be exactly what I'm looking at over in
Giddy up.
this matchup. But we've got a side bet. It's been a long time since we've had one of
Thank
those.
you.
Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure you make your way over to Locked On Sports Today's YouTube channel. They're here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering every single league. You can also find them on Amazon Fire TV now, so make sure you go check them out. Subscribe, doing great things over there. Thank you once again for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Have a great weekend out there. Good luck with all of your bets, and we shall see you back here again on Monday.
Peace.